I often view the mid-90s as some of the most colorful movie-going experiences of my life. It's probably because as a kid, I was like a sponge soaking everything up. It was a tradition for my family to go to the movie theater regularly. There are so many iconic movies from my childhood that made me want to become a filmmaker. Batman, Back to the Future, The Karate Kid, Mission Impossible, Speed. But in the summer of 1996, Twister was king. Twister was released in theaters on May 10th, 1996. I was 8 years old, and my parents actually let me skip school to go see it. Looking back on it, that was pretty badass of them. How many parents do you know that would take their kids out of school to see a movie? Anyway, after grabbing some food at a restaurant, we pulled up to one of our favorite movie theaters, the Savoy 16 in Champaign, Illinois. It was time to see what this much-anticipated summer blockbuster had in store for us. The consensus? Twister was awesome. The energy of the shots, the chemistry of the actors, the music got you pumped. The landscape, filled with cornfields and farms, was really similar to the town I grew up in. The CGI was like nothing I'd seen before. It felt like a roller coaster ride. Twister is what you'd call an event film. It promised big things, and it delivered, especially for audiences in 1996. It became the #1 movie in the North American box office and had a worldwide gross of $494 million, which with inflation would amount to over $880 million today. Who knows how an 8-year-old in 2022 would feel about it today, but you know what? I think they might like it. Critics at the time praised the special effects but complained that it lacked story. I was personally entranced, riding along with a fun group of storm chasers, and the idea was clear to me: hold on for dear life. That's the thing. This was during a time where audiences were still able to be surprised by Hollywood magic. Twister even received Oscar nominations for its sound and special effects. Looking back at Twister today as a filmmaker, I can't help but notice how much the storm chasers resemble a film crew. Joe and Bill are the director and the producer. I'm a director and my wife is a producer, and we bickered a lot during the making of our first 3 feature films, so we relate to Bill and Joe. Except, you know, we're not divorced. Rabbit and Alan are the location managers. Brian is Joe's photographer, so I guess he's the director of photography. Rusty is like an awesome, energetic teamster. The Storm Chasers just reek of an indie film crew, or at the very least an indie rock band traveling to dangerous dive bars all over the nation. Bottom line, this cast is what makes the movie. They really feel lived in. Yes, the special effects are incredible, but in my opinion, this cast really glues the movie together. You care about them. In a special effects extravaganza, that's imperative. I always root for them to make it out of the suck zone. I even like the rival team that's chasing the same storm. Jonas Miller and his crew are like a competing movie studio making an identical film at the same time. Kind of like Deep Impact versus Armageddon in 1998. They have more gadgets, but no heart. After all, they're in it for the money, not the science. Is it me, or are movies these days missing this kind of palpable character flair? I don't exactly know what it is with this current corporate movie-making system. It's probably the fact that they're skimping on the chemistry of actors and story in favor of some weird checklist that viewers couldn't give 2 cows about. It also makes me wonder, why does Twister have such sticking power? Maybe it's the fact that movies like Twister weren't swamped with as much competition as today's movies are. These days, movies like Twister are made and released straight to streaming services and are increasingly less likely to be released in theaters. Plus, they still have to compete with the oversaturation of media that's out there. In Hollywood, familiarity equals safe, and for the audience, it equals the suck zone. Weirdly enough, Twister seems like a pretty unassuming blockbuster conceit. It's about a twister wreaking havoc across a rural landscape and the haunted souls who chase it in the name of helping others to study and predict its movements. Twister felt like a project that was made with love, passion, and attention to detail. Maybe movies like this are a thing of the past. All the departments working together with no other agenda but to make a great movie. Did you know that the director Jan de Bont took over cinematography near the end of the shoot, when his DP was injured in the upside-down house set? That's awesome. Not the injury, but the dedication. Jan had been a cinematographer before eventually becoming a director, so it makes sense that he could pull off that double duty. I think he's an underrated director. De Bont has had some flops during the course of his career, yes, and some reports of questionable on-set behavior, but he's also had a few great blockbuster hits. Personally, Twister and Speed are my favorites. The following day at Lincoln Trail Elementary School, I pretended to be a storm chaser with my classmates at recess. That was the power of this movie. It made you want to be a storm chaser. It's weird getting older and realizing that there are classics in my life that were, at the time, merely a new movie experience. I took it for granted. Some movies capture your heart and your imagination. Twister was definitely one of those movies. My family used to go to Best Buy a lot on the weekends. They had this section where you could view scenes from big movies and push a button to hear the surround sound experience. I remember that they used the scene in Twister where Bill and Joe are seeking refuge from a twister under a rickety old bridge. I loved pushing that button and instantly getting taken back to that theater experience. Twister was the first DVD released in the US and the first DVD movie we added to our collection in my family. A lot of my early film education came from watching special features on DVDs like that one. They were priceless. I sort of wish kids today could experience what I call the peak of moviegoing. I'm definitely biased towards 80s and 90s movies, I'll admit that. I'm also a lover of some of today's movies, but it's becoming fewer and farther in between. But as far as original blockbuster fare getting put out every summer and treating its unspoiled audience to an evening of adventure, well, maybe that's a thing of the past. And if that's true, I'm glad my past included that day in May when I saw Twister with my family while skipping school. If you're looking for Hollywood nostalgia, I highly recommend Twister. I think it still holds up. And if there's one thing I hope you never forget, it's food. Food. Food.